weekend. And as you know, we love to have a lot of fun on this show. But today, I think, after recent events, Trump's tweets, players responding, I think this is the time when sports and politics intersect.
Absolutely. President Trump, of course, at that rally on Friday said basically that for those players protesting the national anthem, he'd love to see an NFL owner, quote, get that SOB off the field. That obviously inflamed a lot of players, giving us widespread and assorted displays of protest yesterday. Trump tweeting more on this morning, saying, so proud of NASCAR and its supporters and fans. They won't put up with disrespecting our country or our flag. They said it loud and clear. He went on. Many people booed the players who kneeled yesterday, which was a small percentage of total. These are fans who demand respect for our flag. The issue of kneeling has nothing to do with race. It is about respect for our country, flag, and national anthem. NFL must respect this. Well, Tom Brady, who has spoken of his friendship with Trump in the past, had this to say about Trump's SOB comments Friday.
I certainly disagree with, what he said and, thought it was just divisive. And, I just want to support my teammates. And I'm never one that says, oh, that's wrong or that's right or that's, but I do believe in what I believe in. And, I believe in bringing people together and respect and love and trust. And I think one thing about football is it brings so many guys together, guys that you would never have the opportunity to be around, whether it was in college and all the way into the pros. And we're all different and we're all unique. And, that's what makes us all so special.
Roger Goodell spoke with the MMQB and had this to say about the protests. The way we reacted Sunday and this weekend made me proud. I'm proud of our league. I spent a lot of time listening to our players and coaches and owners over the past 2 days. They really care about our league. I just think we need more understanding. The demonstrations reflected the frustration, the disappointment of the players over the divisive rhetoric we heard from Trump.
Off the field with Ryan Clark and Louis Riddick. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on Coast to Coast. Ryan, I'll start with you first. After Trump's tweets and all of his comments, what did you expect to see on Sunday?
Well, I expected players to react. I expected many players like Michael Thomas in Miami to be very emotional about what was said. It was a challenge to those players who are standing for equality, those challenge to those players who are standing for unity or at least kneeling in this case. This is as divisive a time in America that I can remember. There are so many people standing on different sides, but when you're a football player and you are understanding of the institutional, the historic, the systematic racism that has put many of the African Americans in bad social situations to be treated the way they have, and you are standing for that. You are doing what people ask you to do, which is be a role model, which is take a stand, which is help community, that many of these people do. To hear the rhetoric of President Trump, where there are many fine people who protest in Charleston, but because you take a knee during the anthem, during the game, you're a SOB. It was a personal challenge, and I do respect the way that many of the players responded. And I think it actually started a conversation that involved more than just the young African Americans. It had the owners involved, the coaches involved, other white football players. And I think that's a start to coming to a solution to unify, starting with the league, but also society.
Yeah, I think, Harry, you saw what you expected to see, or rather what I expected to see when you're talking about football players and guys from different backgrounds, different social standings, because I've seen it my entire life. I've been involved with football locker rooms my entire life. And although there's a lot of differences within locker rooms, a lot of different races, a lot of different religions, a lot of different beliefs, it's interesting how society, how America, how the world in general can learn a lot from athletes, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, what have you, in terms of how they try to get together and how they try to hash out their differences and how they try to come to a conclusion about what's the best course of action to take. It's something that right now the world in general, society in general, could really learn from. For me, though, the issue now needs to be advanced here. The conversation needs to be advanced. We spent so much time now, so much time debating whether or not the manner in which players are protesting is the right way, it's the patriotic way, whether it's right or wrong. And you know what, quite honestly, I think people really like that because it's a conversation that can go round and round and round and round, and it really doesn't get to what is really at the crux of these protests, which is social injustices towards minorities.
Okay, so that's what I want to ask you. I heard you on Mike and Mike earlier this morning, Riddick, and I'll start with you. Will the message of police brutality and equality in this country ever be clear, especially through the NFL and their protests, if the players continue to kneel?
Will it ever be clear? I don't know. I can't really answer that because right now the evidence suggests that people are so caught up on and hung up on debating the manner with which players have decided to protest that they really don't want to get to the issues. And even if players, okay, let's just assume that right now players decided to go ahead and stop the protest in terms of kneeling during the national anthem and said, okay, look, we'll stop that. How do we get the conversation to advance now? What would people do? Where would the conversation go then? Quite honestly, I don't think people really want to take it any further than that for a number of different reasons. One, either because they don't think it affects them. Two, they don't care. Or three, they're okay with the way things are. Because if it wasn't for these protests, where would this conversation be right now? How far along would we be? How far along? Where have we come? How far have we come? Because some of the same issues that we're facing right now as far as social inequality has been something that's been plaguing this country for a long, long, long time. And that's just a fact. Whether people want to face that or not, that's just a fact. Players didn't decide to take a knee. Colin Kaepernick didn't decide to take a knee because one day he just woke up and said, you know what, I'm going to take a knee today. Because I feel as though I just feel like it. And it's almost insulting for people to kind of suggest that that is what's going on here, as if these players and as if minorities in general aren't smart enough to be able to get together, formulate some thoughts about how they're being treated, and then want to take a stand on it. It's insulting to suggest that people are just trying to be non-patriotic, non-American, and disrespectful to our military and police just for the heck of it. That is not the issue here. But people want to keep focusing on that because that's the easy discussion right now. That's the discussion that people can just sit there and get up on the soapbox and pound people for, but they don't really want to talk about the bigger issues because of some of the reasons I just laid out.
Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Lewis hit on many of the things that we know, but we are now moving farther and farther away from Colin Kaepernick's initial stand, from Colin Kaepernick's initial protest. So much of our talk and rhetoric today has been centered around what Donald Trump said, the way that the players have responded to Trump's words, to Trump's hate, to Trump's evil, to the divisive comments that he made. And this isn't where the conversation was supposed to go. Now we've gotten distracted from what it was supposed to be. And that's the method of the detractors. They wanted to talk about, is it okay for Colin Kaepernick to disrespect the flag? Is it okay for the NFL players to disrespect those who fought? They are not anti-veteran. They are not anti-American flag. They're anti the treatment and inequality of African Americans. They're anti our lives not meaning or standing for anything, and no one standing up for those lives. So Colin Kaepernick, who is probably treated differently than his cousins, his brothers, because he is a football player, because he is a millionaire, he took time, and people keep saying, oh, he's protesting at work. What would happen if he protested at work? Protest is supposed to make you uncomfortable. Making people uncomfortable is the only way to promote change. It's the only way to promote a conversation because, like Lewis said, his number 3 thing was people are okay with the way it was. And people were okay. We don't have this conversation today. We don't have the conversation about Colin Kaepernick. We don't talk about police brutality on this network if Colin Kaepernick doesn't take that stand. Politics and sports have now crossed to the point that the man at the highest office of the free world has to talk about what's taking place on the grass in the NFL. And so now we need to move that conversation from how they're protesting to why they're protesting. And we need to move the conversation from this separate group has a problem to we all have a problem. It's now not about politics. It's not about being left. It's not about being right. It's not about policy. It's about being human. It's about being good to people. It's about moving the community closer to what it's supposed to look like and what that flag is supposed to represent.
Guys, let me jump in here. Yesterday was a sea change in what we've seen in the protest movement. I mean, the numbers were 12% of NFL players were protesting yesterday, a huge spike from what we've seen in the past. Did what Donald Trump say on Friday galvanize NFL players? And we're talking about what the protest is. It's been about racial injustice. Was that a protest against Trump now?
Well, it was partly.
Sure, because look, the players felt attacked.
Yes.
Yeah. The players felt disrespected. The players felt like, man, you're going to really go there? You're going to really start name calling now? Because we're trying to protest against something that we have a right and we have a freedom to protest against peacefully, and you're going to make it personal. You're going to start using derogatory names towards and paint us all with a very broad, derogatory, negative brush. Sure, that's what they were protesting yesterday in and of itself, and that was what spurred on the spike in terms of protests. But I think the players in general, African Americans in general, minorities in general, still have a bigger picture in mind. Okay, there's still something bigger that they're after. They're after equality. They're after fair treatment. But we can't get there because all we keep talking about is, should you stand or shouldn't you stand? Like I said, David, if everybody decided to stand and then just stood there quietly and said, go ahead, advance the conversation, nothing would be said. Nothing was being said before. It's only said when there's some kind of spark, there's some kind of moment in time where then people can get on their soapbox and start going, you're un-American, you're unpatriotic, you shouldn't be doing that. Well, if everybody then kind of fell in line, so to speak, and said, okay, I won't do those things that make you have that kind of visceral emotional reaction, can you address my concerns now? A lot of people would be like, nope.
Well, and that's
the problem.
And also, what's happened, Dave, when Colin Kaepernick started this, there were sponsorships lost. When Brandon Marshall from Denver, he immediately lost a sponsorship because the perceived disrespect of the flag, the perceived disrespect of the anthem made people look at this in a negative light. So when you have Charlottesville, and when Charlottesville is addressed by the president the way it is, when you won't condemn Nazis, when you won't condemn white supremacists, now that touches Chris Long, because he can look at it and say, you know what, I've never experienced being an African-American man who was pulled over or who is scared for his life every time he sees police lights behind him, but I've experienced this hate in Charlottesville, the town I'm from. I've seen this hate on a bigger level. And so now more people can feel that. More people can have their sensibilities touched. And then when Donald Trump comes out and says what he says about all NFL players who are taking a stand, now it's hard for us to be brothers for all these different people from different social backgrounds, different races, different religions. It's hard for me to look at Lewis, who I fight and scrape with every day for one common goal, and say you're wrong. Right? So if you're on the New England Patriots who never had anyone take a knee because, you know, for one, your quarterback's a Trump supporter, your owner's a Trump supporter, and New England is a place where you get in line and you do what you're supposed to do, how can Bill Belichick now say you're wrong for kneeling, or there is no problem in society, there is no inequality in society, when we're seeing it every day on the biggest stage and biggest platform there is in this country? And so I think that's why you see more protesters, because now as a detractor, you have less and less you can say.
The movement certainly took a step forward yesterday. We'll see where it goes from here. Lou and Ryan talking us through this as we're all sort of trying to figure out what's going on, not just in the NFL, but in the world these days. Thank you.